I remember the words as if they were harmless background noise at first. She said, "We have separate lives," as casually as she might have mentioned a new series on the streaming app. No anger, no fight, just a statement of fact uttered between breakfast and her laptop. I didn't reply immediately. I only stored it somewhere quiet in my chest, letting it settle. At first, I didn't understand why it unsettled me. Separate lives. The words were simple, even reasonable. But later, sitting alone on the sofa, I started noticing the quiet patterns of separation that had already taken root. Different dinners, different sleep schedules, different friends, different weekends. And yet, the mortgage, the bills, the shared responsibilities, they were all intertwined. The discrepancy felt sharper now, almost unbearable. I began looking at the bank statements differently, not for the usual oversights or errors, but as windows into our actual lives. The money heaped in joint accounts paid for groceries she rarely touched, subscriptions I never used, dinners I didn't attend. Her independence was funded quietly by my overtime, a gesture I hadn't recognized as anything but normal until now. I questioned myself. Was it petty to even think about separating our finances? Defensive? Or simply logical? If she insisted on separate lives, shouldn't responsibilities reflect that separation? I didn't act immediately. I waited, thinking through each step carefully. The idea of speaking without calculation felt reckless. A few days later, I met with a financial advisor. His tone was neutral, even sterile, but the words landed like weight. Joint accounts in strained marriages are complicated. Shared credit cards, even when split evenly, carry emotional risk. Your autonomy can be manipulated without confrontation. Responsibility has consequences. I left with a clear map: restructure accounts, assign bills proportionally, ensure access matched intent. The authority of his advice replaced the chaos of my emotions with concrete steps. Back at home, I moved deliberately. I redirected my direct deposit, closed one shared credit line. Essential household costs were assigned, proportionally fair with nothing extra. I told her calmly, as though it were a weather report. If we live separately, we'll budget separately too. No accusation, no threat. Just fact. Her reaction was disbelief, then frustration. She had expected a fight, an emotional outburst, not documentation and logic. Her voice rose, but I didn't respond. Power shifted quietly in that moment, not because I had dominated her, but because the act itself spoke louder than words. Control was no longer an abstract concept. It was concrete, structured, undeniable. The house changed. Small things first, groceries divided, subscriptions reconsidered, reminders of who paid for what. The invisible labor I had performed for years, paying for the background of our lives, became visible simply because I stopped. She tried to redefine the narrative. That's not what I meant. But intent without consequence is just words. Actions carried weight now. Days later, we sat at the dining table with spreadsheets between us. I didn't yell. I didn't plead. We didn't talk about love or nostalgia or shared history. We talked about expectation, responsibility, and clarity. It was not tender. It was honest. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not as a husband fulfilling invisible duties, but as a person whose effort demanded recognition. Silence had shifted. The quiet acknowledgement of boundaries replaced the background noise of assumptions. Something remained unresolved, though financial independence had made emotional distance undeniable. And whether that distance would shrink or grow remained unknown. I did not push for reconciliation. I did not dwell on revenge or satisfaction. I simply observed the results of action replacing neglect. Even now, when she speaks about her day or her plans, There is a subtle recalibration in the air. We live parallel lives, yes, but each step in these separate paths carries awareness. Independence, once assumed, now has structure. Responsibility, once invisible, now has consequences. The emotional weight of separation is clearer, quieter, more precise than any shouting match ever was. I do not celebrate. I do not gloat. I only notice. There is victory in clarity, in principle, in calm acknowledgement of what has been ignored for too long. And there is discomfort too, because clarity exposes what we cannot repair easily. Separate lives, separate wallets, but the real change is internal. The recognition that action, once deliberate, has power beyond argument, beyond persuasion, beyond anger.